to the Cannons and Tomahawks podcast, presented by Belly Up Sports. All things hockey, all the time. And now, here are your hosts, two washed-up beer leaguers who have no idea what they're talking about, Zach Martin and Alex Nuttall.
Hey, what is going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Cannons and Tomahawks podcast. We have a very special night. Really looking forward to talking to our guests. But before we get to our guest tonight, as always with me is Alex Nuttall. Alex, how are you doing tonight, man?
Oh, I'm all right. You know, lost one of my favorite players from the Blue Jackets today. Riley Nash was traded. I'm kind of sad, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, for a conditional seventh, I mean, at least you got something back out of it, I guess. But
we sent him to Toronto. Essentially, we got a coupon to Tim Hortons, so that's fine. Not a big deal.
we traded with the Chicago Panthers, and we got some guys back for our team. So looking forward to the future of the Blackhawks. For you guys, we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we'll see. Anyways, today we have Michael Remis with us talking. We're going to talk some Winnipeg Jets. He is part of the Winnipeg Sports Talk. Michael, how are you doing?
You're doing great. I'm happy for the weekend. It's warming up here. The Jets are coming off a win, so feeling great. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming out and talking some Jets hockey.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it's a good time to be a Jets fan. I mean, they're playing well. It seems like the playoff spots are already set in the North Division, so now we're kind of just twiddling our thumbs here, see what the seedings are, and you just hope everyone's healthy going into the postseason.
Yeah. So talking about the Jets, and you're a Jets fan, I'm a Blue Jackets fan. So we're just going to go ahead and get it out of the way.
Yeah.
All right. So initially, I want to know your thoughts on the Patrick Laine, Pierre-Luc Dubois trade.
I feel like this is a trade that's going to be talked about for a long time. And I thought so at the time. And I'll never forget where I was. I was at home and I looked at my phone and I was like, oh, wow, they actually did it. And I couldn't believe that they traded Laine. And it was really sad. He was a fan favorite player here. I mean, he scored 40 goals, scored some, amazing to watch him score all these goals, the wrist shots, one-timers, snapshot. So I was, pretty blown away by the trade. I think I thought there'd be a lot of fan backlash, and there definitely was at first. But then I think after a while, when you thought about it more, you thought, okay, look, his contract or whatever his next contract was going to be a lot, and they had already signed Ehlers, Connor, and Wheeler, and do you really have room for another winger? And they were getting Dubois, who was already signed for next year, and then you get an extra year of control after that. So, I think I still think it was kind of sad that they had to trade such an awesome player, but you thought, look, okay, this is going to make them a better team in the long run, and probably helped out their cap situation. Now, Roslovic was kind of a throw-in, and you thought, okay, maybe he could pan out, but he had been given a lot of opportunities here. He had shown flashes, but really didn't have the consistency. So I thought it was an even trade for both teams, and it was interesting to hear, everyone's perspective on it. But my first reaction was definitely like shocked that, okay, I can't believe that they actually traded this guy. I don't know what your reaction was in Columbus.
So the rumblings that were happening probably a week prior, everyone was talking about, there's Jack Roslovic. There's this Columbus kid, and he's holding out from training camp. Well, he's in Columbus. Well, people are like, bring the kid in, bring him in. I'm like, so I started looking at his numbers, and I'm like, yeah, let's not do that. I prefer not. I don't know. He's a young kid. He looks like he has some talent, but he's not very good. But then there's the whole big trade between PLD and Laine, and then they threw in Roslovic. I was like, okay, fine, whatever. We're not losing a ton. I mean, we're losing our number one center, but what's new? We're always going to lose big guys in Columbus. And so far, he's been the better part of the trade. I think Laine, there's still something going on. I think he's in his own head a little bit. Torts is not helping. Let's be real. He is not helping that situation. But initially we were happy and a little irritated at the same time here in Columbus, at least. It's one of those things that, we've had Pierre-Luc Dubois, and they were touting him as being such a big powerhouse of a center, and he did so well against Toronto in the qualifying round and the playoffs. And then, we're waiting, and then we sign him, and then like the next day we find out he wants to leave, and then he ends up getting traded. Well, it kind of sucked because now we still need help up the middle. But I'm not sure where that's going to go. Hopefully we're going to get some trades or do something. I'm waiting for that 2023 7th round pick for Jack Eichel straight up trade. That'll be pretty cool when that happens. But yeah, it's one of those things. I think until we get help up the middle, it's going to be rough for Laine, or unless like Max Domi can kind of come out of his shell a little bit more than he has. I'm hoping that the struggles kind of go away, and then we can see the Laine that we're used to seeing the highlights of when he was in Winnipeg.
Yeah, I know that's kind of the thing that's so crazy is how far that he's fallen. I mean, you look at his goal total for the season, and you see some of the guys on the Jets who are playing like third line roles who have more goals than him. I mean, Adam Lowry, Andrew Kopp, I think Mason Appleton's getting up there. It's almost unthinkable to think that it would be going so poorly for him. And I guess it just shows that, Laine is a guy who he's not a guy who's going to do it on his own. He needs to play with a quality center. And we're kind of laughing here because he was trashing, or in a Finnish report said that he had been, saying he didn't want to play with Brian Little anymore. Well, I'm sure he'd love to have a guy like Brian Little on the Blue Jackets right now, who's out with a long-term injury. But Laine's got a great shot, but he needs help. He's not going to go in the corner. They're trying to make him into 200-foot player. Maybe that's not his style, and you just have to work to his strengths.
Yeah.
So, and again, he's gone in funks here. I remember where he would go goalless streaks, and he'd say, "You know what? I'm terrible. It's not working." And the next game, he'd go out and score a couple goals. So, you hope he finds it, but it seems like when you have a coach who's, he benched Ralsovic last weekend, and he's benching all your top guys. I mean, maybe that's not the way you do things anymore. Again, I don't know, but it seems that things aren't working out as smoothly as they could be in Columbus.
Yeah, I think along the coaching lines with that is my personal opinion about it is, his defensive structure is still stuck in 2004 when he won the Stanley Cup with Tampa. Well, he keeps trying different things, and when it doesn't succeed for a game or two, then he just goes back to that old system, and that's just the way it is. I don't think he's not one of these guys like Rod Brindamore or Gerard Gallant, who's actually starting to kind of adapt. Hey, man, it's 2021. Let's try a different system. You're getting a different type of player. You have these guys that are so offensively skilled. Is Patrick Laine great offensively? Absolutely. Is he good defensively? No. I mean, I've seen some good plays, but overall, is he? No. And that's one of the things. Some of these guys you can't change. You just need to adapt to the way they play and understand you might give up a couple more goals because of that, but let him do his thing, and we're going to get goals too.
Yeah, I agree. And you mentioned Rod Brindamore. Yeah, he's an awesome coach, and you see what they've done, Carolina, and Gerard Gallant's a guy without a job. Maybe, I don't know what the talk is, Columbus. We've talked with a number of people on our show, Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily, who seem to think Torella, his contract's expiring, that he may not be around next year. And if they do go get a guy like a Gerard Gallant, I'm not so sure. It seems like they're going to make the trade deadline's coming up. They're going to make a couple moves. I know the Jets have been linked to David Savard. He's probably getting traded. So we'll see. We're kind of laughing. Like, is Jarmo Kekalainen going to take a call from Jets GM Kevin Cheveldayoff after this last trade? We'll wait and see. I mean, it's definitely possible, but you'd have to think they would have maybe talked about that before.
Yeah.
If they were doing this deal. So yeah, interesting. Columbus. I think for the Jets now, I mean, you look at their center depth. For years, they're like, well, they don't have a top center. And then Mark Scheifele, well, and then it's like, oh, Brian Little's now a third-line center. He's not a second-line center. So then they got Paul Stastny. And now they have Stastny, who's playing on the wing with Dubois, because Dubois came in, and you have Scheifele number 1, Adam Lowry's number 2, and Nate Thompson number 4, and they're all stacked at center. So I think people in Winnipeg still definitely keeping an eye on Laine. You want to have him to have success, but it's crazy how much he's struggling. And I don't think you don't want him. You feel bad for him, but it's kind of interesting. This is a guy who wanted out, and sometimes it's, I guess, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things I actually was curious about. So since you guys got Pierre-Luc Dubois, and he's still going to be a restricted free agent at the end of his contract, even though it's arbitration. Do you think that is going to set the tone for them possibly not re-signing? You have Paul Stastny, Adam Lowry, and you said Nate Thompson, all who are unrestricted free agents at the end of the season. Do you see one of those guys not getting re-signed because of that depth up the middle?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think Paul Stastny, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe he wants to get a longer-term deal. They tried to get him before. So they traded for him a couple of years ago when they went to the Western Conference Final. It was a great trade. It worked out. They tried to sign him in that offseason. He ended up signing with Vegas, and they traded with him here. Maybe they sign him to be like a third-line center role. I'm not so sure. But, yeah, it's going to be tough to keep all of them. I mean, Nate Thompson's on a veteran minimum, so maybe he would be the easiest to bring back. But they're going to have to make some tough calls in terms of their players and in terms of the expansion draft. So I think Adam Lowry's a guy they drafted. They definitely like him. You'd like to have him stick around, but maybe he's priced himself out of Winnipeg. So I would say maybe Thompson would probably come back. They seem to like his presence. But, yeah, I mean, it's going to be – I could see one of them not coming back. Is it Stastny? Is it Lowry? Is it both? There could be some turnover, and you have the expansion draft where maybe you lose Andrew Kopp, who's an RFA, or a Mason Appleton as well, who's having a bit of a breakout season on the third line, and now kind of moving around with Blake Wheeler out. So, yeah, you raise an interesting point. I think we're kind of crossing our fingers that Adam Lowry can stick around, but it may be too expensive in terms of where they have the salary cap. So, and so we'll see. And they do have they drafted Cole Perfetti first round. He's playing with the Moose right now. Maybe they bring him in next year as that third or try to ease him in next year. I'm not sure, but I think they're definitely, when you look ahead to next year, they are going to lose some quality players in the expansion draft and as free agents.
Yeah. I know there's going to be a lot coming up, especially this upcoming July with the expansion draft and then the entry draft and free agency. That's going to be a crazy week and a half. So I know there's a lot that's going to go on, especially with a lot of teams, but with the Jets, with all of that going on, you see Stastny's 35 at a $6.5 million cap hit. He's kind of in the same situation that we have with David Savard. Is he good? Absolutely. But his cap hit is so high, we cannot take that. There's no way. We can't keep paying stuff like that out. And same thing with Nick Foligno. He's at what, $5.75 million for a cap hit, and we can't keep paying that out. Not for the low production we're getting.
Yeah, I know Paul Stastny's a great player. He's making a lot of money. Maybe someone else will give him that kind of contract, but I don't think you'd want to re-sign him to something like that. Maybe if he goes lower. I know he likes it in Winnipeg. Him and Wheeler seem to be great friends. So, they seem to like his presence in the locker room as well. He brings a lot. We'll wait and see. I mean, ideally you'd want to keep Lowry of all those, but I mean, they've seen guys come through the Jets and play themselves into a big contract. Brandon Tanev got some crazy, 6-year deal from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And we were just, I think the Jets were like, great, good for you, man. You were an undrafted college player. We signed you, and you're this. So, sometimes that's just part of the business. And they seem to have a lot of depth. And so maybe, a guy like who they're playing now, Jansen Harkins is a guy who could fill in if, Adam Lowry were to leave in free agency. But it's interesting, if I mentioned that Pierre-Luc Dubois, they traded for him. Well, Pierre-Luc Dubois' dad is currently coaching the Manitoba Moose of the AHL, so that was always a big talk about, he could be home in Winnipeg with his family. I know when he arrived here, he was talking about how his mom was cooking and he was happy to be with his parents. Well, Adam Lowry's dad, Dave Lowry, former NHLer, is the assistant coach with the Winnipeg Jets. They brought him in the offseason. So I don't know if that was trying to get him to stay or it would be a reason for him to leave. But I think it's something to keep in mind, heading into the offseason. I don't know if they said that it doesn't, not going to affect coaching or anything, but it's got to be nice having your dad around at work. I think if you get along, I'm sure they talked about it with him when they brought him in, but I guess it throws a bit of a wrinkle there. But so again, I think they're going to lose a quality player in the expansion draft for sure, but we'll see how free agency shakes out as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So we got the trade deadline coming up. We've talked about potential guys that the Jets might go and probably trade. Is there anyone on a certain team that you're kind of looking at to see maybe would the Jets go get them, because you guys are only 1 point behind Edmonton for the second spot, and you're still not that far out of reach to maybe go for the division. Is there anyone in particular you guys are looking at and possibly like who can we go get and maybe make a push to maybe go get to the division or have a deep playoff run right now?
Yeah, the Jets, they've got a lot of strengths on forward, very deep forward, goaltending, absolutely excellent. I mean, Connor Hellebuyck could carry you to a Stanley Cup final for sure.
Yeah.
But their issue has been defense. Now, they've given up a lot of shots early on. They've kind of tightened it up, but they really don't have that number one defense, defenseman who can play a lot of minutes, quarterback, power play, play all situations that they've had since like Dustin Byfuglien. He was their number one guy. He was, played 30 minutes in the playoffs. He'd, tough around guys. They're not going to get a guy like that, but they need a defenseman. I don't know if there's a number one out there. A lot of the names that have been tossed around that fans are keeping an eye on is a guy like David Savard in Columbus, or Matthias Ekholm was a guy everyone was talking about here, saying got to go get him. Well, now Nashville's gone on this hot streak and they're in a playoff spot, so is he on the board? Jamie Alexiak in Dallas is a big guy. Brandon Montour in Buffalo, a guy who was a big prospect with Anaheim a couple of years ago, and now he's kind of fizzled. He had some nice games recently. I think those are the guys people are talking about. There's a guy St. Louis is following. The Jets have made trades with St. Louis before. The Paul Stastny. Do they go and try to bring in a guy like Vince Dunn? I think those are just a couple of the names out there. Oh, sorry, there's one more. Josh Manson, who's the son of former Jet Dave Manson. Now he's got a year left on his contract. Maybe he would be a fit, and then it would maybe throw a bit of a wrench into some of their current expansion draft plans. But those are their names. I know David Savard seems to be the top name. If you look at Frank Cervelli's TSN trade bait list, which is like the Bible here in Canada. Yeah. Who's going to get traded. Right, yeah. The Jets, they don't seem to usually go get that top name in the past trade downs. They're always rumored, but someone always wants to pay more than them. So traditionally, like the Paul Stastny deal is kind of out of nowhere. I think maybe they'll do a trade that's surprising, but I think they're definitely getting a defenseman. Forward, Blake Wheeler's out right now with a concussion, had an elbow from Brady Tkachuk last game. They seem to have a lot of forward depth right now. Maybe they try to grab another guy who can help them out, but maybe won't be playing every game. So, but those defensemen that I listed are the guys that I know everyone here has their eye on.
Yeah, for sure. I think Alexiak would be a good addition for you guys, and even Vince Dunn too, because Vince Dunn, surprisingly, I think he's almost a very underrated defenseman that no one really talks about outside of the their traditional Central Division teams, like us, you guys, and stuff like that in the Wild. Like anyone who's in the actual traditional Central Division knows how much of a pain in the butt Vince Dunn is, and you kind of want to have that type of guy on your team. So if you guys go get Dunn, I think that'd be definitely a good move for sure. So before the season started, there was a lot of talk about like where teams are going to finish in the North, and I know you guys are probably maybe you guys knew how good your team was going to be, or maybe you're kind of shocked like everyone else when you see Winnipeg where they're at right now in third in the division. Like I said earlier, you're 1 point behind Edmonton for second. Everyone was saying like maybe fifth, sixth. I've heard like seventh. Like, so what, like, where are your overall reactions knowing where you guys are at right now compared to what some people were saying before the season started? Or did you guys were like, okay, keep sleeping on us, and we're going to surprise you when the season starts?
Yeah, I thought that they were good enough to be second for sure. We were always following the betting odds, and I was like, Toronto was a heavy favorite before the season, and we were like, I don't know, man. I think the Jets are kind of as good as Toronto. Like, Toronto's defense hasn't really changed that much. They got goaltending questions. The Jets have the best goalie in the league. He's the Vezina Trophy winner. I mean, you could debate Vasilevsky's better, whatever. He's the reigning Vezina Trophy winner. I mean, he can carry you. And we knew that their defense may be slightly better. Forwards are elite. So, and you look at a lot of the other teams. Every team in the North is pretty flawed. Toronto, they got problems in defense. Goaltending, Jack Campbell's been unbelievable the last 10 games.
Yeah, for real.
Edmonton, they got the two best players in the league, and they're not a lot of depth and questions on defense and goaltending. Right. Montreal, I mean, they're good, but they got a bunch of solid lines. They don't have any top players. And so I thought every team was flawed. Calgary, I expect a lot more from Calgary. They're the biggest disappointment.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a shocker too, because everyone was considering them like top 3 in that division. Where they're at right now, it's like, geez, okay.
So I thought the Jets could compete. I thought they definitely had a chance to finish first. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of games left, but I thought they were definitely a playoff team, but you look at the way it is this year, they're in the North, which, to be honest, I don't think those Canadian teams are as good as some of the top U.S. teams. Mm-hmm. So I think they have a shot to get to a semifinal, and if you have a guy like Connor Hellebuyck in net, I mean, he's stolen game over and over. I mean, he's amazing to watch. So I think you could just ride him, and I keep thinking of like the Buffalo Sabres, who got carried to a cup final by Hasek. Obviously, he's not Hasek, but he is the top goalie in the league. Yeah, but the Jets have the scoring where they're getting outshot. Getting outshot a lot of games. We saw this again yesterday against Montreal. I mean, at one point in the game, Montreal is out shooting them 24-9, but the score is 3-1 Jets, and that just happens over and over. And when you have guys like Connor, Ehlers, Scheifele, these guys can score. Like Ehlers can skate the puck from end to end, like he did the other night, and just put one past a goalie. So they got a lot of talent, lacking on defense. So they're going to add someone. We're just kind of now counting down until Monday to see who they add.
Yeah, it'd definitely be interesting to see how that goes. And I think I forget where I think I had you guys finishing probably like 5th or 6th, because it was the defense was the big question and stuff like that. So it's definitely interesting to see what you guys do when it comes to what the deadline is going to be like, and also in the offseason, because going into the next year, you're probably looking at us going back to the old divisions and stuff like that. So now it's like we have to kind of have to gear up for you guys again, which I'm like, we don't have to play the Jets this year, which is kind of nice. I don't have to deal with, Ehlers and everyone else and Connor Hellebuyck. But it's definitely going to, like, let's see, we are looking towards the offseason. Like, is there any like big, I know we talked about defense. Is there anything in the offseason that you guys are considering probably like what would be the best course of action for the team? Like, do you go and get bigger names in the offseason, or do you think you guys are going to probably like run it back with this team right now as is? And then what you're maybe like for the expansion draft too, like what are the plans for the Jets for that and with that kind of wrench in the system?
Yeah, the focus. I think they need to add on defense. I think forwards they're pretty much set for next year. But it's like, who are they going to lose in the expansion draft? Matthew Perot's a UFA, and he's having an awesome season. But I think maybe they re-sign him for a cheaper deal. He's making $4 million. Adam Lowry's a UFA. He's making $3 million. He's due for a raise. Although again, you don't know how is the pandemic going to affect salaries. And Andrew Kopp's an RFA, so. And as far as the expansion draft, I'm not sure. It could be him you lose, Kopp, or is it an Appleton? Right. And then on defense, they have a couple questions. Now the debate is, who are they going to keep on defense? Is it Morrissey and Pionk for sure, but is your third one Dylan DeMello, or is it Logan Stanley, who they drafted in the first round the year they drafted Patrick Laine? Right. Now, and he was a classic 2 years away from 2 years away kind of guy, and he's really emerged this year as a bottom pair defenseman who is massive. This guy's 6'7", and he tried to throw it in with Corey Perry yesterday, and Corey Perry wanted nothing to do with him. So
that's really saying somebody of Corey Perry going no, I'm good. I'm good. I ain't about that life.
There's a picture going around of like Perry's face when Stanley grabbed him, and he's like, no, I don't want anything to do with this guy.
No thanks.
But I mean, I haven't like looked too much about which free agent defensemen are available. I mean, traditionally Jets aren't going to sign any big free agents, but they need a number. They need a number one. They're probably going to lose, a forward that they like. I think they have some people who can step in, but they need a number one D, and then they haven't had that since the playoff season or since they lost Bufflin before. So I think that would be the focus going forward. But the core, they got a really solid core of the team there signed for a while when you have Wheeler, Connor, Scheifele, Ehlers, and now Dubois.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that the Jets are going to have to focus on. I know, like you said, sit there and talk about defense. Do you see, from my end, at least a lot of the stuff I've seen on Twitter it's David Savard is almost all but guaranteed to go to Winnipeg.
Okay, yeah.
Or I don't know what we would get in return. My guess is they're going to dump these guys and just get draft capital and, just build up the picks for the summer, for the off season. And who knows, maybe we'll just keep tanking and win the draft lottery. I have no idea, but it's one of those things. Would you see David Savard as a player that could come in and be your, I don't know, top pair guy for a couple years? Because he's a 30-year-old who you don't get a ton of points out of him, but he blocks about 376,000 shots a game.
Yeah, they definitely need a guy who can come in. I don't know if they'd be looking to sign him long term, but if he can come in this year and help them and play penalty kill and play those shutdown minutes, they definitely need that. Josh Morrissey, he's kind of their number one guy right now. He's making $6.25 million for till at least 26, 27 years. That's a long time, and he's not having a great season. And he's kind of shown, maybe when he was playing with Trouba. Trouba was really helping his numbers a lot. Now he's kind of been shuffling around playing with Dylan DeMello and Tucker Poolman. He's kind of been playing with everyone, Morrissey, and he's shown that he's a decent offensive player, but he's definitely not a number one power play guy. So I think they would bring David Savard in. I don't think it would be a long term play for them. They do have, in terms of trading, I think they should 100% trade the first round pick. Their top prospect is defenseman Ville Heinola. He was on the All-Star team for the World Juniors for Finland. He's playing with the Manitoba Moose right now. It's possible you even see him in the playoffs, but he's kind of a smallerish, puck-moving defenseman. So I think he could definitely help them. So maybe they look for him. The other big prospect is Dylan Sandberg, defenseman as well. He's playing college hockey before, and now he's with the Moose, and he's kind of a bigger guy. So maybe one of those guys steps in. I don't think they'll trade Heinola. I think they'll trade the first-round pick. Maybe they do trade Sandberg as well if it's someone pretty good, but I'm not sure. It seems to me from what people we've talked to on the show, we just talked to Frank Cervelli, that some of these teams aren't the value of a first-round pick this year not as high as previous years because there's so much unknown with the draft because the OHL, which produces so many picks, isn't playing. A lot of these teams are having these weirdo seasons. So, the GMs aren't valuing the draft as highly, but maybe there's a market you can exploit if you're a team who's looking to get some draft picks. Yeah,
I could see a lot of that being, if somebody's going to be giving up a first round pick and it's valued higher, I could see a 2022 first round pick or a 23 or something along those lines. But
you look at the trade that was just made. New Jersey gives away 2 quality players for one first-round pick. We'll see how that trade looks. Palmieri, Zajac going from the Islanders. So I thought that was a good trade for the Islanders. You give a 1 pick, you get Palmieri, who's I think a pretty good winger, having a down year, and Zajac, I think he's a good player as well.
Yeah,
not necessarily a top 6 guy, but I think they can definitely help a team. I know they needed a guy. We thought maybe they go for Taylor Hall because they're missing Anders Lee. But if you get 1 first-round pick for 2 guys, is that what it's going to be for the rest of the weekend? We'll have to wait and see. So we're counting down here. Trade deadline day in Canada is like a holiday. You stay home, watch it on TV. I remember when I was in school, you'd be watching it and watching it all day. So lots to get to. I know there's not necessarily the big names this year, but there's definitely names that are getting traded. I guess actually Taylor Hall, is he a big name still?
Yeah. He's getting thrown around a lot. One of the ones I've seen start getting thrown around again that I think a lot of people are forgetting about is Mike Hoffman with the Blues.
Yeah.
And he's the same caliber last year. as Taylor Hall. And then as soon as Taylor Hall signed with Buffalo, everyone immediately focused all their attention to Mike Hoffman. And I think with the Blues not being very good this year, he's kind of gotten lost in the shuffle. So there's I think there's going to be a lot of rental moves this year. I don't think there's going to be a lot of long-term decisions in terms of, hey, we're going to get this guy. Like, what was it? 2 years ago or 2 or 3 years ago when Vegas traded for Mark Stone and he signed that extension in the airport right after he got traded.
Yeah. It was like that's like not even a few hours later. It's like, oh, boom, there's the extension. It's like, okay.
Like sure. He was still in the airport in Ottawa when he signed it. I'm like, good grief.
He's like I get to play the rest of my life in the desert. Okay, where do I sign the contracts?
Well,
sure,
absolutely. And now he's a captain. I mean, he should be the captain, but I don't think there's going to be a lot of moves like that. I think it's going to be a lot of rentals. You know, for example, like if the Jets do make a move for Savard, I could see that being a rental and then let David Savard test free agency and maybe you re-sign him to a year or two. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think any of these teams are looking to do long-term commitments. Although Vancouver just signed Tanner Pearson to an extension yesterday, but Vancouver I think is a weird team compared to some others.
Yes.
So they got some bad contracts for bottom six forwards. Yeah. So they got some anchors there. But I don't think a majority of teams, and I agree. Mike Hoff, I think he got moved up more on Frank Cervelli's trade bait list, and he mentioned the other day to us when we spoke to him that he was a guy that he was keeping an eye on. In the Blues, they're there. They're behind Arizona, fifth. They signed Jordan Binnington earlier. He's kind of had a up and down season, but and maybe they do sell because, as I mentioned before, they were on the cusp of a playoff spot a couple of years ago, and then they traded away. They traded away Shattenkirk, I remember, and they traded away Stasny. Yep. So Doug Armstrong, he's not afraid to make deals if he's like, look, we're not going to win the cup this yeyear, and that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah. So with the Jets right now, with everything that's been going on with Blake Wheeler, and he's going to be out for an undetermined amount of time. Who needs to step up in his presence? You lose your captain, and you guys are in a good position to make a run in the playoffs. Who needs to step up and who needs to start bringing their A game to, compensate for him being out?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm really curious about what they're going to do with the power play. They've kind of split the units in two. Maybe they go back to a super unit, but they seem to really like the way the second unit goes. The second unit being Ehlers, Pionk, Perreault, Kopp, and I'm missing one, and Dubois. So we'll see. But if someone to step up, probably I think Pierre-Luc. I would say Pierre-Luc Dubois may be my first pick, but I think he's been solid. The guy who's really going to be in an elevated role is Andrew Kopp. He's heading into an RFA season. He's having a great year. 13 points, 18 assists. That's 31 points in 40 games. He can play everywhere. He's played center. He's played wing. He's played on the power play. He's now getting elevated to top line with Scheifele and Connor, although they are kind of jumbling it around. So I would say him. The other guy, too, Mason Appleton. Watch out for him. He's played mostly on the third line this year with Lowry and Kopp. He's got 9 goals, same as Laine, 11 assists, 20 points for 40 games. So he's a guy who a lot of people here think, look, if this guy's given a shot here at the top 6, he could impress some people. He's a late draft pick, spent some years with the Moose. He's had a real strong season as well. But Andrew Kopp would be number 1. He's going to see the increased role with Wheeler out. But then Mason Appleton not far behind. And I think pressure is always going to be on Dubois as the guy who's in the trade. But I think he's chugging along. He's doing his thing. I don't think they're expecting a ton of points in, but he can contribute. He's had some big goals. Yeah. But those 3 guys are my pick. I know you asked for 1, but I'll give 3.
Right, for sure. So down here, everyone's been kind of like keeping track of North Division because of the fact that it's like all the teams are pretty much gunning for each other, and it's like there's always something every night. Like what is it like up there for you guys? Just being able to playing all the Canadian teams in that state. You're seeing everyone just beating up on each other. Like, what's the overall feeling with the North Division? Is there talks of maybe you guys would maybe want to keep that possibly as moving forward, or are you guys more so looking forward to going back to our normal divisions before this, where we're at right now? Like, what's the overall national feeling of the North Division where it's at right now, and maybe, or do you guys would possibly want to go back to where it was before? Because now Arizona's moving over they're moving over before this whole pandemic started.
The North Division is the best. It's like we have our own little Canadian league here. Every game is important. Everyone's interested in it. I don't want to go back. I think a lot of people here don't even care about the U.S. teams. I haven't watched any of not watching the games. It's like our own little league. I think it's amazing. So I think the television ratings are good. I think interest is up. I think it's great up here. Maybe not so great, as a whole, but I kind of hope it stays. I obviously don't think that it will.
Right.
But it seems like the division here, I think, means a lot more than other seasons. Where, if you win the Central, I think it's great. But being the best team among all the other Canadian teams, you kind of have bragging rights that mean something for all the fans. So I love North Division. It's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it would be interesting though, because of the fact that you got Seattle coming up. It'd be kind of hard to try to have an all Canadian division unless you want to add Seattle to the Canadian division, quote unquote, because the fact that it's like the proximity is kind of close. I don't know how you guys would probably feel about that, having like one American team.
Yeah,
kind of being.
If it was Buffalo or something, I don't think it's going to work. The time zones aren't going to work. It's too spread out. The NHL loves talking about time zones.
Yeah, so for sure. Yeah,
I don't think it's going to work. It would go. I think Gary Bettman's mentioned that before, but it's fun for this year. I'll take it for this year. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. So we had Corey Patterson. He was a former Regina Pat player back in the day, and played in the ECHL as well. And he's from Saskatchewan and stuff like that. And we talked to him about a potential, like if the NHL was able to say expand into another city and stuff like that, maybe like a more heavy driven hockey, area. He talked about, possibly Saskatchewan getting a team. Like, what are your thoughts on maybe, like if the NHL was ever decided to expand into Canada, like what areas would you think would be good spots for an expansion? Because everyone, talks about, bringing Quebec back and stuff like that. But are there other, say, Canadian like cities or areas you would think would probably be a sustainable place for an expansion team if they ever did decide to do maybe one or two more in Canada? Yeah,
I was talking with some friends yesterday, actually. I mean, Quebec City is always the number one.
Right, of course.
They built this new arena. It's beautiful. I'm not really sure how much it's getting used, especially in a large capacity level.
Right.
Regina, Saskatoon, I guess that's interesting. They do love hockey. They support the CFL. I know the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I mean, they're the most popular team in the league for sure. The whole province loves it. I know there's a lot of Jets fans in Saskatchewan as well. That's interesting. The other one would have to be a second team in Toronto, but I don't think the Leafs would allow. They like to have their monopoly over that. There's enough people to support it. So, but those were those. If you had to say Canada, those are the three. I mean, we always talk about the U.S. I always like Kansas City as one.
Right.
They have that arena there. I mean, it's cold in Kansas City. Seem to have the weather for it.
Right.
So I would say them too. But, we'll see. They seem to be pretty set now, and now they'll have 32, right, with Seattle. But I guess there's always talk about the Panthers going to move, or there's talk with Carolina, but they got a new owner now, so maybe they're in better shape.
Yeah, because they're always talking like Arizona at some point too. Gets brought up. I think because I've heard like other people say maybe like Halifax would maybe be a good spot for another team. But I mean, other than that, I heard someone as a joke say, "Oh, why don't we just put a team in Newfoundland and just have like the Newfies have like their own team out there?" But I think the travel might be a little bit hard, especially because how far out that is. Sure.
The Jets had their AHL affiliate in St. John's for the first couple of years, and it was way too far. I mean, getting there and retrieving guys and putting guys out there, it's tough. So I feel bad. It's a great place by all accounts. I love hockey, but as far as geography, not great. So
yeah, because what is it, like an ECHL team? I think it's like the Growlers or
Growlers,
something.
yeah, they won the championship a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
but I don't know how they do it, man, with the travel. It's pretty close to like Europe at that point.
yeah. You pretty much can just like throw a rock and hit like Greenland or something.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how close they are.
It's like we're in Central. It's like 2.5 hours ahead. That's far.
Jeez, that's wild how just spread out that is for sure. So before we let you go, I just got one more question. So with how with the division's going to get realigned with Seattle coming in and stuff like that, what are your thoughts on possibly what the new Central Division is going to look like, bringing all of our guys back, our normal teams back, but then adding Arizona? Do you see maybe Arizona kind of adding a little bit of spice to the Central Division for the fact that they are a team that is interesting, for the fact that they can get good really late on into the season, but then they can also kind of fall apart too, because you don't know what we're looking at in terms of the Coyotes. What are your thoughts on them joining the Central Division whenever we get back to our normal Central Division?
Oh, well, I think it's going to be great for, once we can travel to the States and the border zone. It's going to be great for Jets fans who go to Arizona in the winter and want to go to a game. I think it'll be good for that. I mean, as far as the team is, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how it looks next year. But I know there's a lot of fans here who go to Phoenix, have places there. Go to a hockey game. I think it'll be good from that perspective. It'll be nice to have everyone back together. Minnesota, I know they're a lot. Their St. Paul is just 8 hours a drive, so people have done that. St. Louis, we've had that rivalry for a while. Chicago as well.
Yeah.
Colorado is Colorado. I don't even know what it's going to be. Is Colorado still in the Central? Will they still? I think.
Right now they're in the west. They're in the new West, but they'll be back in the Central.
Okay, they'll be back.
Yeah,
they're scary.
I'm not really looking forward to playing with those guys again. Of course, you guys have always been trouble for us too and stuff like that. So I'm excited to have the gang back together and stuff I wish St. Louis would just go away, but that's just my own personal opinion. But it is what it is.
The one team I really like, Minnesota. They kind of been like the team that's always gets in the playoffs and loses. They never really had any young, exciting players, and now they got Kaprizov. Alex, I know you have his jersey in your closet. He seems like an awesome player, so I'm looking forward to seeing him a bit more because, I haven't watched too many of these other teams. You only see the Canadian teams now. You have the package and you're flipping around to games, but you used to see Chicago, Minnesota. You used to see every team. Now you only see 7 teams. So I haven't been sick of it yet. It's kind of every game is very intense.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
but you don't know. I don't know about what's going on with any of these other teams. You don't really care. We're in a bubble up here.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, because the Minnesota's got Kakinen too, and then stuff like that. So, and with the new TV deal, it's I know. Sorry, a couple more questions popped up. You were talking about teams, being able to watch teams up there. So, and with down here, we got ESPN and stuff like that. And, we're getting the, NHL's going back to ESPN. They're going on ESPN Plus and stuff like that. So, NHL TV is getting kind of put away down here in the States. What's the situation for you guys kind of up there in Canada? Is TSN still what's the streaming situation for you guys? Because you got TSN 10 and all that good stuff. What's that situation going to be like next year for you guys, or is it really not much of a difference?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting when it happens. So the Canadian media is going through a bit of a shift here. So in 2012, NHL signed this 10-year, I forget what it was. I think it was $4 billion contract with Rogers. It was a lot of money. I think they're paying $400 million a year, Rogers, for the rights. And since then, Rogers, I think they're losing money on this contract. They've kind of downsized, and TSN picked up. They do all the regional games for Winnipeg, Ottawa. They do half of Toronto and Montreal. Okay. So I think that they'll probably do a deal where they split the rights, because for one company to pay that much, I don't think it's feasible. So it's going to be interesting how it changes. The streaming here for the Game Center it's called Rogers Game Center Live. So that's just on NHL.tv.
Right.
We'll see. So we'll see what happens. I think it will. I remember in 2012 we were all keeping an eye on it, and Rogers made that big deal, and they hadn't had the national rights for a long time.
Right.
So I think that one's up after next season. I would think 'cause it's 2022 would be. So that's a ways away, but we were keeping an eye on the U.S. one. It's cool to see them back on ESPN. The fact that the NHL Game Center is now on ESPN Plus. Maybe more people watch it. You'll have different people talking about hockey. So you have to think that that's a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. Luckily with the out-of-market games and stuff like that too, they're all going to be on there. So it's like you don't have to pay so much more to get the NHL TV anymore. Because basically, if you already got the package of ESPN Plus, you're already going to have the games on there. And it's like $6 a month compared to dropping $100 all at once. So it's definitely interesting. But we enjoyed having you on, man. We thank you so much for being able to join with us. Where can people find you, and where can everyone turn to for your guys' Winnipeg Jets coverage?
Yeah, we're Winnipeg Sports Talk. Our website's winnipegsportstalk.com. I'll have all the information there. All of our social medias, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Sports Talk, WPG. And then our daily show is on YouTube Monday to Friday at 1 p.m. Central. Just type Winnipeg Sports Talk in YouTube. It should be the first one that comes up, but winnipegsportstalk.com has all of the information for our socials. Go hit us a follow, and that's a podcast on every podcast platform. You can search for it as well, but our website has all the links.
Okay.
So I got one more quick, small question for you.
Yeah, no problem.
Very simple, very short answer. You guys don't have a super big rivalry with either of them? Which Tkachuk brother do you hate the most?
Oh man! Oh wow!
That's a simple question.
That's a really good question. Well, Matthew Tkachuk took out Mark Scheifele in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, I remember that.
Sliced his leg, and then now Brady gives the flying elbow to Blake Wheeler the other day. So, and Keith Tkachuk played for the Jets, so I was like, you're kind of conflicted on how to feel about these kids. You want them to do well, and they're good players, but they just play like such snakes. So I'm going to go with, I think right now, Brady, because that's the most recent one. And I know the Jets are playing Ottawa next week, and we're all talking about what are they going to do to Brady Tkachuk, who just took out their captain with the elbow. So Brady right now, but I don't think people here have forgotten about Matthew Tkachuk taking out Mark Scheifele in the playoffs last year. That really started a downward spiral. They could have beat that Calgary team, but they lost Scheifele. Then Laine got hurt. It was bad. But Brady, right now, he's number one on the Jets fan Tkachuk hate list. Tkachuk brother hate list. Keith, I still like Keith. He was great for the Jets, but his kids, I think it seems like the whole league has a problem with them.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, sounds
about right.
Yeah.
Well, Michael, we appreciate you coming out, hanging out, talking with us, talking Jets hockey a little bit. As you guys all know, you can find me at @nuddle_CBJ on Twitter. You can find Zach at CLEZach. You can find the Cannons and Tomahawks podcast at Cannon Hawks Pod. Then also go follow all the other podcasts and all the other cool people at Belly Up Sports. And here at Cannons and Tomahawks, Zach, why don't you tell the lovely people what it's always about?
Beer, food, and hockey.
Thank you for listening to the Cannons and Tomahawks podcast, presented by Belly Up Sports. Beer, food, and hockey.